Okay, so now members, now we are going to see how do we find trig angles given sine, cos and tan, and how do we use the range. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now start with, you know that we have 4 quadrants in trig. The first quadrant, the second quadrant, the third and the fourth. And we know that in the first quadrant all of them are positive. In the second, it's only sine, which is positive, that's why it's S. In the third, it's only tan, which is positive. And in the fourth, it's only cos, which is positive. So, element I don't see here, meaning the other are negative. So, if you see here, sine is the only positive, meaning tan and the cos is negative here. Here is tan, meaning that cos and sine is negative here. And here is the cos, meaning that sine and tan are negative. Now, in the first quadrant, this is how we get the angle. The angle is just theta. In the second quadrant, we get 180 minus theta. Here we get theta plus 180. Then here we get 360 minus 180. But look at the trend. Here it's 360. So they get this angle here minus the acute angle. Here it's 180. They get this angle here 180. You know from here it's 180. And here is 360 after completing. So you get this angle. They get this angle minus the acute to get angle here. Here, they get this angle plus the acute. Then here, they get this angle minus the acute. Now, if now you go on the second revolution from 360, if now you go again, here you go from 360, if you add 90, you get 440. From here, you add 90, you get this. And from here, add 90, you get this. And from here, add 90, you get 720. That's now what we call the second revolution. Now, the angle here, we say you get this, you see that with here, then just go the angle 0 plus theta to get theta. So here you get 360 plus this to get this angle. Here, we say you get this angle minus the acute. Here we say you get this angle plus acute in the third quadrant. And then here we say you get this angle minus that. So that's how you get the second revolution. Even you can go on the third revolution. Now, let us see. So for theta in the following, now they are giving you this range. Always your range should correspond with the angle that you have first. So it's like now this one is positive, meaning if it's positive, we identify the quadrants. Sine is positive in 2 quadrants, the first and the second. So here we indicate it's positive in the first and the second. Why? Because that sign is positive. Now we get the acute. To get the acute, this one should be positive. Now that attribute is going to help us get the angles in these other quadrants. So from here it starts, minus theta will be sine inverse over half, which will be 30 degrees. Now this is now my attribute. Now meaning that in my quadrants, the angles I need them in the first quadrant and the second. First of all, in the first quadrant, it's just the theta, meaning that now this qualifies. Then in the second quadrant, I get 180 minus the acute angle. So I get 180 degrees minus the acute angle, which is 30 degrees. And here my can become 30 degrees, comma, this minus this will get 150 degrees. Why? Because this range is corresponding to this range and it's beyond, it's between 0 and 360. But I'm not getting these angles because I'm seeing sine is positive in the first and the second. When I come to this, notice that tan is negative. If it's negative, you identify the quadrants. Tan is negative, you say it's negative here and here because here it's positive and here because here all are positive, here tan is positive. So meaning tan is negative because of the sign in the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant. Now, after identifying the quadrants, now you ignore the sign and you get the acute angle. From there, start your theta minus 5 degrees, 50 degrees will be now tan inverse of 1, which will give you 45. Now, this is our acute 45 degrees. It helps you to get the angles in these quadrants. Now, you come and state that my 50 degrees is going to be in the second quadrant. How I get angle in the second quadrant, I get 180 minus 45 degrees, comma. I also need the fourth quadrant, which is the fourth quadrant, I get 360 minus the acute. My acute here is 45. Acute angles they are the ones which fall in the first quadrant. From 0 up to 9, they are the ones we use to get these other angles. So now, before you do anything, you first always get all the angles in those quadrats, then you can take this or you can divide it as we are going to see. So now my theta minus 50 degrees is going to be, here when you subtract, I think you get 135 degrees. Here when you subtract, I think you get 315 degrees. Now there, after getting all the angles, now you can take this side. If it was positive, you add. I mean, you subtract. If it's negative, you add this 50 here and here. So here your theta will be now 135 degrees, then plus this 50 degrees, comma, then you get 315 degrees, then plus because it's negative, because the other side comes plus. If it was positive, then you subtract. So from there, your theta becomes, when you add this to this, you get 185 degrees, comma. When you add this to this, you start to be having 365 degrees. Now, you start now. This 365 degrees is out of this range. So, for it doesn't qualify. So therefore, you say, therefore your theta is only 185 degrees. Why? Because this one is out of the range. I think you can see that. Okay. Now when I come to this, you start having the function as cos, and it's negative. So immediately identify the quadrats. Cos is negative in the third and the second quadrant. Cos is positive in these two. So it's negative in the second and the third quadrant. So they are indicate. So cos is negative in the second and third quadrant. After identifying, now you get a acute angle. After you get a acute angle, you first ignore the sign. So now from here, your theta over 2 will be cos inverse or 1 over root 2. And I think this will give you 45 degrees. Now, this is an acute angle is not included. It's only included if we have a first quadrant. But instead, this is just, we are getting it to help us get the angles in these two quadrants. So here I have now theta over 2. Now, I need angles in the second. In the second, I get, this I will get angles in the second. 180 minus 45 degrees. Now, I'm seeing that my range here is not the same. So what you do first, you first make sure that this range is the same as this range. So you see that here you divide the theta by 2. That's what you start with. So here you divide also that by 2. When you divide 0 by 2, you get 0. When you divide this by 2, you get theta over 2. When you divide this by 2, you get 180 degrees, such that this is corresponding with that angle. So now, still in my second quadrant, I'm seeing that in the second quadrant, it ends at 180, so it is still in this range. But now, in the third quadrant, you see that in the third quadrant, I'll be having now 180 plus. So if you add anything on 180, you'll be exceeding 180. So that's why I'm going to leave it out. I'm not going to include this. Why? Because in the third is out of the range. This range here. Because you see for it, it's stopping, the one corresponding with this stopping at 180. And the third you are beyond 180. So there, I think you get your theta over 2 as 135 degrees. Then you can just multiply there. And if you multiply, you get your theta as, you first get all the angles before you multiply. But here all the angles is just one. Then I can easily cross multiply. So I'll be having 270 degrees. And that is the answer. And start now my theta. The theta, you see that it's in the range. Hope I'm clear. I'm converting back now to the original range, because the original range was the theta. That's why I'm cross multiplying. When I come to this, now I'm seeing that the angle is being multiplied by 2. So it's not corresponding with this. That's what I started with. So this will be now multiplying it by 2. So 0 degrees less 2 theta less or equal to 720 degrees. Now it's that this time round, I'm going beyond 360. Why? Because this angle, when I correspond it with this, I multiply it by 2. Now, how do we handle that? Now here is that you are going to get even angles in these other quadrant, extra quadrants beyond 360. First of all, it's negative. Then cos is negative. We have seen it's negative in the second and third. So you indicate it's negative in the second and third. Now, from there, now we first get our cute. Our cute cos theta will be cos inverse of root 3 over 2, which will give you root 3 over 2, I think will give you 30 degrees. Now, it gives you 30 degrees. Now, from here, now you come and get those angles in those quadrants. This actually is helping to get the angle in the second and the third. Now, we start with the one from 0 to 360. From 0 to 360, from here, from 0 to 360. We said in the second and the third. So we shall get 180 minus 30 degrees, comma, then 180 degrees plus 30 degrees. This one is in the third because cos is negative there. So that is the one from 0 to 360. But so now my range for this angle is going beyond 7, is going up to 720. That's why I'm also going to, so from 0 up to 360, I'm just going to get from here up to here because those are the quadrants where sine cos is negative. Then I have to go up to 720. Now I come. This one is the first quadrant, so I'm going to get an angle in this quadrant because it's the second and third also here. But on the second revolution, so here I'll get 540 degrees minus 30 degrees. Then in the third, on the second revolution, I get 540 degrees, then plus 30 degrees. And from here, my cos theta becomes, you first get all the angles before you divide through, or before you multiply, or before you add or subtract. That's why I'm getting them first. So this will be 150 degrees, this will be 210 degrees, and this will be 510 degrees, and that will be 570 degrees. Then after getting them all the angles, now you can divide this to do. So now my theta here becomes, divided there, I think you get 75 degrees. I'm dividing through by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2. So here by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, then by 2. So there I get 75. You just get your calculator. You get, then you come to the next here. You get 105 degrees. So divide here. Then you come here. 510 divided by 2. You get 255 degrees. Then 517 divided by 2. You get 285 degrees. And now you check, are all these angles in the range that corresponds with the theta? Because theta was the original range, was the one in the original range. And it's that all these angles are in this range. So members, that's how we get angles in those quadrants. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is 8. I wish you the best.